What's this? This isn't Scott.
Oh yeah, not Scott again. Not Scott again.
Yeah,
It's that way.
Not Scott again. Hey, not Scott. How you doing?
I'm not Scott. I'm the other guy. Yes.
Who are you? What are you doing on my lawn? Get off my lawn.
And turn that music down. No, don't turn the music down. That's great music. And you guys can't see it, but I'm always dancing to that music before the show starts. It's kind of annoying to the other co-hosts, but we're like that.
It's all good. So,
indeed.
So let's get through the beginning introduction piece quickly. And I'll say this right now. Whenever you want to enter a question, get in the live chat with a queue in front of it, and we'll dig it out and answer your questions as much as we can to our best of our abilities. Let's do a little bit of introductions here. So,
sure.
This week we have a guest with us, and that is Salih. Salih's been around in the community for a very long time, and he's going to be joining us today. Let's do some introductions. So, my name is Simon Lightfoot. I'm a Flutter community leader. I work as a CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can follow me at Dev Angels London on Twitter. Randall?
Yes, hi. I'm Randall Schwartz. I'm one of those guys that knows a little bit about Flutter, and I know enough that they gave me the blessing of being a Google developer expert, which means I get to spend a lot of my time answering your questions in all the various community channels and things like that. But I also professionally program in Flutter. I've had gigs now for a couple of years, and I've been doing great with that, having a great time. And bring your questions on, and I'll be the one looking at the Q colon in the chat room. So please be sure you put those there, and then we know it's a question for us, not a question for each other, because sometimes you ask each other questions. So I ignore those.
And we have a Salih with us. Salih, do you want to join us on stage? Hey, Salih, how's it going?
Hello. So I'm not Scott as well.
This week's
team is exactly. We will be the people who will try to be Scott, but not good enough. I'm sorry. I'm not that.
No one can match that.
I think this is a Scott-free show.
Anyway, yes. So Salih's a senior developer advocate now at AWS, Amplify, and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So
Flutter GDE to boot.
Yeah, exactly. We are 2 GDs here, and really excited.
I'm outranked.
I'm really excited to let Simon answer your questions again while just saying that I'm a GD, and that's all.
Yeah. That way we just get the credential without having to do any of the work. Yeah, that's
really I see your plans.
That's right.
So we'll just quickly go through a few last little minute things. So do's and don'ts. So we have, we want you to be nice, respectful, constructive in the chat. It's just be nice, right? I mean, and don't post anything rude or offensive. The usual stuff. No advertising, promotion, no spamming, harassment of any kind is completely not tolerated. And you'll be blocked, obviously, and you'll be blocked not just from our chat but from others. So you have been warned, and that's why we'll leave it there. So let's get back to things. So, guys, welcome to the stream.
I'm always excited to be on the stream. Like, I don't know how many times that I've been into this Humpday Q&A, but every time it feels quite exciting because I don't know what question that is going to come, and it's always.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
When did we first meet? When were we doing the Humpday? Was it doing Humpday Q&A on the original Zoom stuff? Like was that 3 years ago now? Was that longer?
No, 3. Come on. It should be at least 4 years at least.
4 years now. Is it 4 years?
Dude, it was even before 1.0. I remember that we were coming together 3-5 people, around maybe even 2018 autumn or so, and we were just talking about some random stuff. And back then it was even more crazy because randomly some folks from the Flutter team was just jumping in, brainstorming with us. That was really, really good.
I hope it still is really, really good. I think
it is. It is.
What we're finding at the moment is that everyone's just got busy, and not just us. Not just us not just the Flutter team, but us and the community. Just everyone's busy. So trying to find and arrange things gets that much more difficult. So thank you for joining us on very short notice.
No, like I'm always happy to be here. And luckily, like I had fewer meetings today, so I'm always open for these kind of discussions here. So all good.
I want to hear. So how long have you been with AWS now?
I mean, I'm quite new. I started in the beginning of June, and
brand new,
yeah,
brand new fish. Is there a term for Amazon for like the way Google has nooglers or whatever?
For the new ones, not that I know of, but like the people who work there is called like Amazonians. I'm a fresh Amazonian per se.
I can say you could just call you rookie, right? Was that?
Yeah, exactly.
Rookie. So get your questions coming in. See the chat has got some stuff going down. Hey Pedro, nice to see you. John, welcome. I have a few names I recognize already coming into the chat.
John is always here directly. Like
now this is good news, John, because I will see you there then. I don't know if I'm going to be presenting yet, but we'll see. So Joy-Con London's coming up October. It normally is. I don't actually quite know the dates. I think it's October 23rd. I think there's
I will apply for a visa around September just so I don't have the same problem like I did last year. At least
because we had you lined up. Yeah, we had you lined up for. Was it last year or was it year before?
Yeah, exactly. Last year I was there. Like normally I was supposed to be there, but the visa took like 3 months to arrive.
I mean, it was a different. I mean, even then it was a different picture with regards to all the lockdowns and everything, right? And I feel like, at least here, it feels like things are definitely easing off somewhat, and obviously still you have to be careful, but it's not it's not like it once was. Put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at least we can travel around, right? Like last year, it was just a imagination or a dream for me to, for example, go to the States, but like this Saturday I'm flying in, so I'm really excited because this is going to be my first like long flight after COVID, so 12-hour in a tube with a lot of folks. That's interesting.
12-hour flight is a long flight. I've done that before. I don't think I haven't tried to go any longer than that. So I've gone from direct flights from London to San Francisco, which are about 11 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, to do something like to Australia, or New Zealand, I've not done that. That's like a 24-hour flight, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
LA.
I would go insane. I think I would go insane on that flight. Yeah. I'm so eager after 12-hour flights to run off the plane, right?
Yeah.
I don't
even LA to Sydney is about 14 hours is the last time I flew that, as I recall. And it's like you watch a movie, you watch another movie, you have dinner, you watch another movie, you take a little nap, you watch another movie, and then you're halfway there.
It's like literally you look at it you're like, why am I not there yet?
Yeah. So I learned on the last few trips, I realized we were flying almost directly over Honolulu. So I would fly LA to Honolulu, spend the night there in a nice hotel, and then the next morning get up and go Honolulu, Sydney. And it was much easier breakup in that. And then I got to see my Hawaii friends too.
Nice. So, do we have any questions coming in? Let's have a quick look.
We got a few. Mark one.
Oh, look. See, I've already answered this completely by mistake.
Oh, okay. The next one.
Yeah, hopefully I am. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yes, fingers crossed.
Do you know Flutter Flow? Do you recommend it for beginners, novices like me or not? Well, I've seen your name around. I wouldn't call you a beginner per se, not in that sense. I think I have played around with Flutter Flow a while ago, and it's definitely changed since then. It's improved.
Yeah, it's gotten better. Yeah.
I think it doesn't output any code whatsoever though, does it? It's like it's an all or nothing.
No. if you upgrade to the Pro version, you actually can spit out the code that it's writing for you. And I haven't taken a detailed look at that. But
see, fundamentally, all those things have the same problem, which is once you generate code, you can't customize that code. Like it's a bit like you always have to do this kind of thing, and at least a lot of them, where you put like 2 commented lines in, and everything between these commented lines it will keep, right? So you can only put your custom code between those. Otherwise, it just wipes it because it has to regenerate and redo things. So I feel like
you have some round tripping problems. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I feel like it's very difficult to say I want to completely customize something the way I want, and then not being able to do that because of the limitation. I'm not saying that's with Flutter Flow because I don't know, but that's my experience for many years with very many of these sort of like rapid application development tools, RAD tools. Like
also the code quality, right? Like how is it? Do you guys have any idea? Because last time that I checked, it was a bit long time ago, so I can't say how it is right now. But back then, the code quality was kind of suboptimal, I must say.
Well,
so this is also something important, right?
I mean, we're talking about that. So I just want to say we are talking about Flutter Flow here, and we have no direct experience with it. So I'll reach out and say, if anyone from the Flutter Flow team's watching and want to get on the show, email us at this very address. There you go.
I actually, they talked to me recently, and one of the things that got promoted was they do have a Mac OS desktop version now, which is much faster to interact with, faster than their web product. So I mean, that's a plus. That's definitely a plus. And I was looking at it first when it came out in beta, which was a long time ago, like a year ago. That's a long time in Flutter world. And it seems to be a lot more mature. There are more knobs you can play with. My challenge always to these is not particularly targeted at Flutter Flow, is that they get you into the idea of thinking you're composing for exactly a particular size. And in doing that, you're going to lock in pixel boundaries as you move stuff around. You're not actually working with raw columns and rows with their various knobs and dials. So it's a little trickier.
We say this, but I mean, like a lot of those things, they do sort of like are almost like templatey. But then again, with Flutter, the way you can preview, I'm assuming, if I remember rightly, in the edit, you can actually obviously see it because it just constructs the same widgets, right? So you can actually see those widgets and interact with them live and like change the size perhaps and do that kind of stuff. So you could probably have that kind of interaction. Anyway, so coming back to the question, we're coming back to the question here. Do we know it vaguely? Do you recommend it for beginners? I would say yes. I mean, it's a great start for anyone that's trying to build an app that's trying to without any programming experience. However, I think like most of these things, you get to a point where you're like, I want to do more, and you can't because it doesn't allow for it, and you will end up going to the route of then making it yourself. And if, as you said, if there's a pro package that lets you export the code, exporting it and then not going back to Flutter Flow and then taking the export code and working on that and refactoring it and making it into your final product, let's say. That's the kind of thing I would see from this.
I will say it's probably good if you're probably good if you're going to be the Flutter advocate in your group. Like you're the only one so far that's super excited about Flutter. It might be a good way to get an MVP, proof of concept out quickly, even though it doesn't have all the flexibility and all the bells and whistles that a normal Flutter beginner app even would have. But it might be a great way to kind of bridge that gap first. And then you can say, oh, this is what Flutter can do. This is pretty. This is great. And look, it's looking the same on my Android and my iOS. So, I think it would be good for that sort of stuff. But as far as doing a production app that's going to be in the store and going to have new versions and going to have social media attachments to it and things like that, it will get you started, but at some point you're going to have to knock the training wheels off the motorcycle.
Have you guys seen that Zap? The Zap.
Yeah.
It's been made by Invitaes. It just kind of reminds me of this as well. That's obviously a different product entirely. It's not like a RAD development, but I do like that. There has been this constant. Someone asked me the other day. They're talking about my computer. And I said, like, why do you need all that? Isn't everything on the cloud now? Can't you just do everything on the cloud? And I'm like, well, not really with development, right? Like it's very difficult to do that. But then, you have got these, I think it was, I can't remember who spoke to me about this, but like, I think it was at Microsoft, I can't remember, but they have like a remote, like the remote desktops of old, or dumb terminals. There's one for you, Randall. Remember dumb terminals? This notion that you have the mainframe, right? You have the cloud that has all the desktops in it. And then you as a client, you just have your keyboard, mouse, and screen, and you've got a very thin client that just attaches to that. And because of the network bandwidths and everything else now, you end up getting that experience of running your computer from wherever you are in the world. And I kind of feel that this, taking it back to Zap here, that's that kind of thing, right? Where you've kind of got an IDE in your browser, and it's the full IDE experience. But then you can hit save and then close it and then open it up on another computer and just carry on if you wanted to. So there's an interesting experience there.
I've been around the industry a bit longer than you, and it was always funny to watch this wave for about 3 or 4 years of everything centralized, dumb stuff on people's desks. And then everything distributed because smart stuff on desk makes sense. And then everything centralized once again. And we're going to have, and it would also be at the level of, is there a central computer location for your business, or are there, group computers? And so I think, there's enough tidal action there that if we could just harness it for energy, we would have the energy problem solved. But it's like this sweep in and everything goes to the center, then everything comes back distributed again. It's pretty funny.
What was that? I don't know why you just remind me. There's like a nursery rhyme that goes on that, like,
okay,
put your left. Oh yeah, what's it? Hokey cokey. Put your left foot in. Put your right foot out.
Pokey.
Hokey pokey. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shake it all about. Yes.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
how it works. Yes.
Techist says, any way to create persistent notifications for Flutter for iOS? I mean, does iOS allow you to do persistent notifications? I have no idea.
Not that I know of. I mean, like, if this person means that, like the one in Android, this foreground services,
So you can't swipe it.
Yeah,
you can't swipe it away and stuff like that.
I think it's a different system on iOS. Not like it has a media system for the purpose of the foreground service. So not that I know of.
Do you know what else?
Yeah.
The other thing I found out recently, the latest versions of Android let you swipe away persistent notifications, and they get hidden.
Ooh.
And then, well, you say yes, that's kind of a nice thing. But what happens is your music player gets hidden, and then you're like, how do I stop the music from playing? You have to pull down again on the notifications, and then it shows up. And I'm like, it's totally non-intuitive, and I'm like, this is not the way this should be, right? I feel like
it happens on iOS sometimes. I got something that links to like a YouTube video, and then it starts playing, and I go, and I'm in like a restaurant. I don't want to disturb people. And then, so I'm looking frantically for, where's the stop button for this? This is really annoying.
Do you know what's worse?
Facebook does that a lot too.
Do you know what happens to me when I do an update on Chrome, and then I forget that I've got like a bunch of things open, and then it restarts Chrome, and then suddenly everything plays at once. And you're like, why? Why do you want to autoplay everything at once? Surely this must be like, when you start up, don't autoplay everything at once. I mean,
it does as you command,
right? So yeah, it's very technical.
Wanted this played.
We have to find it. Yeah, it's short technical. Sorry, no, I don't think there is. It's just, it doesn't have that kind of notion of having stuff in the background. It just doesn't. The operating system doesn't sort of act the same way.
Yeah,
and they don't want it either, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, Callum. In main function, I sometimes see various statements other than run app and bindings, and sometimes async. could you give me a quick overview of what's available, useful? Well, everything's available. It's just a function. No, I wasn't being facetious. I mean, just saying that everything's available. The point of doing this, so the point of doing widgets binding ensure initialized, Flutter widgets, whatever it is, that the ensure initialized, is so that you can start communicating with plugins and across the platform channels before you call run app, because run app is the one that normally initializes the bindings. So that's the first thing. The second thing to mention here is the idea of making it asynchronous. It means that you can kind of await for things before you call run app, before you initialize your UI. And what that means is that the native splash screen, that is, the one that's provided by the operating system, will remain on the screen.
Yeah.
It does, however, present a problem. If any of those async operations return an error, your app has crashed and stalled on your splash screen. It will never go out of that. You need to try catch that and do another run app in your catch and essentially say run app show error screen, right? Or retry or some other thing. And it kind of ends up getting a mess. So we definitely want, you want the native splash screen to be around as long as possible. So it's normally, so that you can kind of get things prepared. So the user transitions into, let's say for example, you have the user gets presented with their profile when they open the app up for whatever reason. We have to load that network image, let's say. You have to download their profile. You have to check to see if they're logged in. Is the token correct? All that maybe takes a few seconds. So what you don't want to do is your app starts up, you transition, and then you see all this stuff kind of load and jig around the screen and kind of all this stuff happen. It's kind of off-putting. What you really want to do is show your native splash screen and then nicely transition into the final screen already there for the user to see. And that's kind of where you want to go with that. And the reason why most people do that. However, there is actually a better way, and that is I can post the gist in a second in the chat. It's called defer initial frame. It allows you to essentially call run app, but defer the actual painting of the frames until you're ready, and then you tell it to release, and it will start painting the UI and do the transition into Flutter. Yeah, go on, Brandon.
Or another strategy that I've been playing with, and we'll have really, I'm going to start producing screencasts again. It's now been sitting for about a year because I've been in noisy situations, and I'm back to a really quiet situation. This is really nice. But you can actually call run app more than once in main. It's a little weird. You have to kind of think about it a little bit, but you can call run app on something that doesn't use any heavy resources from your app. Like it's just a splash screen that's animated or something. So you've got stuff going on the screen. Then you have a wait on different things that are triggering features and take time. And that's all going to happen in parallel with this already animated screen. And then you call run app on your main app. So you can actually be doing these await calls, like initialize Firebase, go get your preferences, things like that have been needed to be features. You can actually do all that while there's at least something going on the screen. And it's really kind of slick. Only takes a couple of minutes to figure out once you understand what's going on. And I've used in production apps already, and just need to write it up and do a 10-minute talk on it. Soon, very soon.
It's always soon.
Yeah.
When does everyone have the time, though? Right. Salih, did you want to add anything to that? Or I did just blurt it all out?
No. All good.
Sorry. Yeah, I've posted a link in the chat to a little example of initializing something with deferring it or something. There's plenty of ways of doing it. That was done a few years ago. I'm sure you can make it better. So, I mean, talking about this, I do like the way that I remember when was it Flutterfire, the kind of initialization of Flutterfire doing, was it Firebase app.initialize app or something like that? And you can do that, and that's a feature. And the idea is the example they give in the SDK doc, in the old SDK docs, was like a future builder. The idea that you in a state, you capture the future, and then you can then use a future builder to update the UI to the user to say wait until it's finished loading, which is also kind of a nice thing. And that's just really simple to do. So you don't have to do this defer init. You don't have to do run app twice. You don't have to have anything more in your main. You just have your top level widget be your splash screen that waits for a future to finish, and then can either show like a nice animation while it's doing it, and then flip over to navigate to a material app widget, which has all the rest of the app in it once it's done. Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll move on. There's so many ways of doing it. I don't think there's any one particular way that's better than others, or it makes just whatever works for you, really.
Yeah.
Right. Richard says, "Hi, about Simon's Dart server Cloud Run videos. Is this a recommended setup to host a Flutter web app with deep links for passing values, or is it overkill?" Yeah, sure. I mean, like, the thing is, if you need to host dynamic data, there's support in Firebase hosting for Firebase dynamic links only, but you can do that like on a path. However, yeah, if you want to set up just like static hosting, so inside Shelf, the Shelf static, I think it's called, as a package. That's just set up static files on your web server, and then you can have a route that is like /link or something that handles your deep links in some magical fashion. It works. I don't know. I mean, it recommended. Hey, just pick something and do it. I mean, the thing is, the end of the day is, if you're familiar with Dart and it's straightforward to do what you want to do it. It's either that, or you pick another language or another system or some other technology to do that same thing. Fundamentally, it's always going to be those same set of things that have to be solved, and it's like how you want to go about solving it. And the question is, what makes sense for you? Right? I mean, is that succinct? I don't know. Here's one for you, Salih.
Why SetState not support async? Okay, so the main reason is SetState happens synchronously. So once you set the state and things happen, you do not know the state of the widget itself when the asynchronous operation happens. And when you do this asynchronous by, for example, relying on a context or something, you might be actually already working on a dead widget itself. So they want to prevent this. I think it was in the docs, right? Like, it's basically, it's because of like SetState is, let me quickly find it.
There's also, you can't, like, it'll complain if you try and return a future from a set state. And that's mainly because people were just starting asynchronous operations during set state that were changing the state. But at that point, your state hasn't been changed because you wait for the asynchronous operation to finish. So you have to wait until your async is done, then call set state. So you want to do that in your when complete, for example, or then. Did you want to add something to that? Sorry, Randall.
I just wanted to say that also remember that build must be synchronous. You can't have a future sort of going on after you said, here's the widget you should show. No, it doesn't work that way.
I tell you what I did do. I've done a few times in some Flutter apps, which I think was actually quite neat. I'm not sure if I'd say it's good, but that is returning widgets from like a future. So you have something that returns the widget. Well, no, but you have something because the widget itself, like you have it, you set in a variable and then build uses it. But you can kind of do this thing where your widgets are generated elsewhere and are returned to the UI. And I did that with a rich text renderer. So it would build the rich text widgets over here in the future and return the top level widget. They just said, okay, I've got the result, I'll display it now. Because again, the key is the widgets are just the configuration. They're not actually what you see on the screen, right? The widget classes themselves. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, and no worries. I think like these kind of questions also comes from the fact that many people do Flutter applications, but they do know less about the internals of Flutter per se, like how it works, how, for example, like even for the most beginners, widget is the most essential part. But actually, when you look at it even a bit deeper, you can see that widgets are the one that you can just dispense like without worrying about it, because they are just configuration holders and that's all. They don't do anything. So I would recommend seeing a talk from the Flutter team from like, I think Google Developer Days China. And if you're in Chicago next week, you can also come to my talk about this topic as well. Sorry for the advertisement.
No. Do it. Put the links in the chat. I don't mind.
So I will. I spent like quite a bit of a time about this topic, so I can definitely say that learning the like deeper level of Flutter is something that is really, really important for all Flutter devs, because then you appreciate the platform better, and also you understand why things are working the way that you think it is.
There's actually, isn't there? I'm trying to bring this up here on the Flutter website. I think isn't there some
I think it's inside Flutter, or like Flutter. Sorry, architecture overview is the one that you're looking for.
Yeah. Where was that?
Let me find it. I found it. Do you want me to send it to you?
Oh yeah, like resources, architecture overview. There you go.
Yeah.
So they got this one here, which is sort of full grasp of everything. There was another one though, wasn't there? Like it wasn't just
inside Flutter. I think
there's a link at the bottom, inside Flutter. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the other one I was thinking of, and this one also covers a hell of a lot of the internal workings.
Yeah.
Of Flutter. So if you kind of want to get sped up, those two, architecture overview and inside Flutter, are some good resources to
also, I can recommend. It's an old video, but there's a video from Adam Barth about like rendering pipeline. I think it's also really good as well.
I thought you were about to suggest the mahogany staircase.
Yeah.
Yeah, the staircase one. I remember that one.
Yeah, that's old. That's like 2015, man.
Yeah.
Like 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like,
then you see
hell?
that you can say that back in my days.
Did they have Flutter back then? That's early. That's very
early.
It
was the early. It was early. It was
I'm
the very
just
first
kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, it was when they were.
Yes.
It was when they were first building it and showing off what they're trying to aim for. Right. It was that's why it's not up to date, but the principles are there. But it's still it's nowhere near like what we have now.
Simon, can we do a quick interruption? So I know that there's some number of people out there right now watching this show able to ask questions, but I bet you have some friends that also would love this experience. And instead of just watching the show after it's done, we know because a lot of people watch it after it's done. Right now, take a couple seconds, take the YouTube link, give it to one of your friends and tell them this show is worth jumping in on. Okay, end of the commercial.
Yeah, no,
especially this show, like this week, because
with Salih on it. It's very important.
Yeah, this is the best one ever.
Exactly. Share it with your friends, families.
Yeah.
All right, let's crack on here. So, can you give us the difference between AWS and Firebase? Because there's a lot of clients who prefer AWS more than Firebase. Here in Morocco, as an example, I don't know why. Salih, this sounds like one for you.
Yeah.
So, okay.
One of them pays me, the other one doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So to give folks about like an idea about what I'm doing before I answer is that like I'm working for AWS. We have a team under AWS called Amplify, which is a team that is actually helping you out with like storing your data, authentication, real-time updates, and like S3 buckets and so on. All of these.
This sounds to me like it's the Firebase of Amazon.
I mean,
not in those words. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
I mean, it's like these are basically products over the AWS products that you have. For example, like if you know about like Cognito user pools, like the authentication libraries on top of it and so on. So like as a difference, it is like totally up to your use case. I can't tell like what is different, what is not, and so on. But like both of them are giving you a set of options. About the Morocco market, I don't know, like, by the way, if you mean AWS Amplify or if it is AWS, still, I don't know. Like AWS, because it's a cloud solution for you to, also you can create your own backend services with products like API Gateway and actually have.
Let's say I had a client and that client was already using AWS, I would probably recommend they use Amplify because it makes sense, right? Like
exactly.
To interface with something on the same platform. The other side of that is always obviously if your client has already got experience with AWS or that in some fashion, that also makes more sense, right?
Yeah, also it depends on the region as well, right? Because like some like products have more reach, some has less. So it's totally dependent on like where your client's at, where your like target group is at, and so on. Also, it depends on your like application target as well. Like, for example, if you wanna support all platforms or not, and so on. So it is totally up to you to decide. But overall, if you are in between, you can always reach out to me from Twitter and ask any questions about your concerns and so on. Sorry
Twitter
for
handle.
the advertisement again.
Yeah, Twitter handle's on the screen. There you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot about this, like what do I use for this and the other. It's like what you and your client feel is most comfortable to you. I mean, to be honest, like if you've got experience in one platform, that makes it speedier for you to do something in that, do it in that if the client wants you to do it in that, Like I think there's no like one best. I don't think there's one best solution over and above the others, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like every platform or every solution is coming up with something different. And as engineers, developers, whatever you want to call yourself, like you need to be in the steering wheel for checking out all options. What do they offer and what you can do with each option? Then you need to decide how to carry on. Like honestly, like if you talk to, for example, Firebase folks, they would recommend their product. If you talk to the AWS folks, they would recommend your product. But what you need to understand is you need to try out both and see what makes the best experience for you as a developer.
The other side of this is when the client says, so which one do you recommend? It's like, well, you can go back to them, hand on your heart and say, I recommend this because of this would be good for you. That would be good for you. This would work for you. And I can make that X times quicker than the other thing, or whatever it is. It makes sense. So do your research.
Exactly. And like, do not be afraid to ask questions. That's all.
Yeah. Reach out. I can't pronounce this Korean name. I think it's Korean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Korean, but I can't read as well.
Why is there no usable tree view in Flutter? Any plans to make it official? Well, so first of all, we do not work for I will repeat this again. We do not work for the Flutter team, so there is no official stance from us whatsoever. So, as far as I know, the tree view is one of those things that is very much a desktop-driven thing, and since Flutter came from a mobile background, it just hasn't been added as a primary widget. And there's been several good implementations that are in packages already. And then also the theming and the way that they act is quite specific to the platform that you're on. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see a reason why they couldn't be made. So if there is one, like put it forward to the team, raise an issue ticket. Yeah. That's what it's there for, right? There might already be an issue ticket for tree view.
There's a pretty good tree view implementation in Boxy, and I know some people grumble what Boxy does. It really sort of allows you to sort of somewhat pervert the ordering of when you're getting a child size versus when you're setting up your own layout and stuff like that. But one of the things it does really well is build trees. So there's a demo of it in the thing. I'm going to pull up the URL here and put that in the chat, but just wanted to let you know that Boxy is one of your choices for getting a decent and customizable tree view.
Is a tree view that complicated? Because I've done one before with myself, and they're not that actually complicated to build. In terms of a UI structure, like you can build it out of components. I guess there's the other aspects of it, so making it more sort of semantic and accessible, and that's probably where like the difficulty comes in, because it's very much a visual mouse-driven interface.
Right.
You can use I know like on the Windows ones, you can like use the cursor keys to navigate, like press up, and it collapses the tree and stuff like that. That section of the tree. I don't know. Yeah. Hope that helps. Sorry.
We tried.
Akshay? I don't know. I butcher everyone's names. Why OnWall Pop not work inside Nested Navigator on every single page? It will. I'm sorry. Why will it not work inside a Nested Navigator? It works fine inside a Nested Navigator. I've done it myself. In fact, it's quite a good use for them for inside Nested Navigators.
Yeah, this is a question that we can say that we need to see the code to answer this.
What you're probably reaching is I'll tell you what you probably want to do. So what I normally do is I put an OnWall Pop scope around the item that holds the nested navigators, and then I'm going to direct that scope using the OnWall Pop function into the particular navigator that's on the screen, and so I'm pushing it down into that tree. Then once I push the pop event down into the tree, the OnWall Pop scope of that tree will then be fired. If that makes sense. Anyway, hope that helps. Keep your questions coming. Make sure you put a Q in front of them, and we'll get them up on the stream and we'll get them answered. Otherwise, we'll have a nice short show. I do want to actually, we'll see if we can talk a bit more about AWS. Maybe you can show us around what the packages are. I'm not quite sure myself. So let's see what other questions we have here. So Elijah, I can read that. What is RunZone, and does serve anything helpful to developer? Please excuse me. So, guys, who wants to take that?
Yeah.
Okay,
let the GDE take it. Let the GDE.
No, this is a question that I will let Simon take because.
So
I don't like. Honestly, I'm not a huge
well, let me
fan
give
of
you my
and,
understanding of what the whole zone piece is.
Yeah.
So something that's very common in programming is what do they call them?
Exceptions?
No, hang on. Thread local storage, TLS is the name given to it. You can go look up thread local storage on Wikipedia, and the idea is that the current execution can have data attached to it, so that you're not passing specifically between functions and as parameters. Now, because Dart does not use threads, they're not called thread local storage. What we have is isolates, and then your isolate execution runs in zones. A zone is the same thing as a block of thread local storage. In my eyes, that's the way it principally works. And you can override that context that's in the zone and provide your own variables. It's basically like a hash map, so you can provide your own name and your own data. So based on context of where the current execution is, you could reach out into the zone that you're currently executing within and get any number of things that you want to get. It's also considered bad practice in terms of it's non-obvious, right? So you actually have to make sure that you're commenting these functions saying this requires to be in a zone that has this thing. There's no conformancy around it, right? Like it's easy enough that you could be running in a zone without some parameter or something.
Yeah.
So the other thing to say is there's certain functions that take place, like print. Print is a function that reaches out to the zone to run the print command. So you can actually wrap the print command like the output of data from your app in different zones and turn it off. So you could turn off the print function across your entire app through using a zone, for example. The same thing goes with a few of the other functions, including schedule microtask. Schedule microtask is another one that actually gets executed from the zone. The idea of doing RunZone is basically that function is to override the zone specification. So that allows you to override any one of those things I just mentioned, add context, override so the one that you see most often is the uncall exception handler. So basically saying if an exception is thrown, it gets down all the way down the stack and reaches the run zone where you start the zone, then it will be caught there. So by default, when the isolate started up, it starts a default zone, the root zone, and that doesn't have the uncall exception handler will throw an exception inside the debugger and just crash everything, right? So the idea here is that you can do a run zone, so you can capture those errors before it gets to the low level of the runtime, and then log them and then carry on in some fashion or continue to crash, whatever you want. So in short, the time that you'll see this the most is either to add in context or to add in uncle exception handlers. Any addition to that, guys?
Honestly, but like I just want to add like one tiny thing to this topic is that like honestly, if like I'm in the point that if you're in the thinking of using RunZone, like I would just suggest that take a step backwards and see what others are doing in the same scenario. Even like the solution, for example, that Randall talked about, like having two run apps and seeing like let's say like partial loading or like partially working with the data is somehow like more useful. I like overall I do not see any huge help to the developers. That obviously like it is there to help you out at like some scenarios, but overall I didn't see any big like help all around. So I would recommend sticking with whatever we have, or sticking with the classic approach that we have, and try to avoid it. Yeah.
And you'll find all documents. So here I've just literally searched for zone, and it's come up from the .async package, and it says here that code always executes in the context of a zone, available as zone.current. So wherever you are, this gives you your current zone that your thread, the isolate is in. I say thread, it's like thread of execution is the way you think about it, but yeah, anyway. And the initial main function runs in the context of the default zone root. Yeah. Code can be run in different zones by either RunZone or create new zone, zone.run. And you can fork it and so on. And then what happens is when you call this, you can get to give a new zone specification. And there's the zone values. This is like you can override any object you want in there. And then the zone specification lets you override the yellow, create periodic timer, error callback, fork, uncle exception handler, print, and then registering some callbacks and various things. So these are all like just those kind of like these are functions and features that need to be accessible but also scoped. So to be honest, its main reason for being would be for the zone values, if at all. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's a very I don't know.
Delicate topic.
Sure. Aha, he's back. Oh, she's back, sorry. I'm applying an app where I need to communicate potentially between multiple apps. Which is better, DBUS or GRPC? Hang on. You're applying an app where you need to communicate between multiple apps. Which is better? Neither.
I don't understand the question. Can you?
Well, exactly. The problem here is multiple apps can be two things. Like you've got multiple apps, that is in different apps installed on one device.
Yeah.
Or you're just building multiple apps that don't have nothing to do with each other, that are just communicating with something, right? Either way, I mean, which is better, DBUS? I mean, there's no better. Like review them, give yourselves the pros and cons. I've used gRPC on a few projects. I do like the notion of gRPC, and I just sometimes it has its pain points. I've not used DBUS personally. To be honest, if you need to communicate with apps on the same device, you should be using the mechanism that the operating system provides for inter-process communication, or IPC. Do not use networking stack for local host communication. Not a good idea. Very insecure. Fraught with other problems. Best thing to do is have a proper IPC mechanism where you have like in Android you do AIDL, or Android Interface Descriptor Language, and you define a service, and then the services can register callbacks and interact. You can set up permissions and all the rest of it and do it properly. But yeah, obviously that requires native information about the platforms. But again, desktop all have IPC implementations. IPC is inter-process communication. You can go read up. That's another topic in itself. Anything to add, guys? Have you used DBUS?
Nope.
DBUS. I thought DBUS was the Linux thing, wasn't it? Like the
I have
device bus or something, isn't it? I can't remember.
Data bus, maybe. Who knows? Somebody knows. Yeah. Not us, obviously.
Question: after hot reload innovation from Dart Flutter team, do you have any guess about the new innovations for Flutter?
It's constant.
I was going to say there's so many since. There's been a lot
Yeah.
more since then, and the key to that is it's all done in open source. They say themselves
Yes.
it's really hard for them
Yeah.
to keep any. So the premise of a lot of these big team, the big products and teams, especially from people like Google, is they want to release with a bang. Like most people, they're going to go, here's all the latest cool things that we've been doing. The problem is when you develop in open source and you're developing closely with like us, the community, it's a progressive change, right? We're seeing incremental changes all the time. And it's honestly, it's not until you go back. If you went back a year, honestly, you should try this. Check out an old version of Flutter and try using it. Because you forget how bad it was compared to what it is now, because you're there getting those incremental changes as you go with little performance things and try building UI without the for and if statements inside your array initializers. Well, I can't remember. Element arrays or whatever, element conditionals. I mean, it was a completely different thing.
That
you literally had to do child, new list, and then you had to do the new keyword. And
my god, that's what I was going to say.
New.
If you want to commit suicide, just go back in time and do that 1 point something. Then
I mean, even when you look at Dart 217, which is pretty recent, the fact that it added enhanced enums, super constructors, and named keywords or named parameters anywhere in the list. All three of those fundamentally change a lot of code that I'm writing already.
So I'm gonna bring this up since we're just talking about it. Here it is. Here, this is the official medium.com/dartlang, and then you'll see here 217. Yeah, and there's always a thing, but this is a nice little highlight reel. So there you go. So enum members allowing us to add members to enums finally, which has been really helpful. Like I ended up building class before this. I would end up building a custom built class with static initializers or static instances, whatever. And then you got super initializers having that super keyword. I absolutely love this. Like the amount of code repetition that's gone from that is brilliant. New lint checks, API samples, debugging code, and then the ABI specific stuff. And all the stuff with FFI has really been improved a lot. Executable signing, a big deal on desktop, and risk V support, which is another interesting point. So this is actually quite an important one that's kind of gone overlooked. Actually, I'm going to mention this a little bit. So risk 5 or risk V is an open source specification. I think risk has always been this. I may be wrong. Has been a open source architecture. What's really important about this point is that recently ARM nearly got bought out by NVIDIA. I think it was, right. It got shut down. But then there's these points of, what happens if another company comes along and buys ARM? The company that holds all the intellectual property for a lot of the the chips that we have. Like what happens if they start levying license fees or some other random thing, right? Who knows? So you really need to diversify the portfolio of the type of devices that you support. And since Risk is completely open source architecture, you can get that implemented. And there's already Risk 5 processors that are being made by all these companies that don't want to be locked into ARM. And it's now become, before ARM, from what I remember, and Randall might tell me if I'm wrong here, this kind of been the continuation of the mic. I'm not putting you on the spot here right now. I'm just trying to remember. Okay. So back in the day, you had different companies making lots of different computers. And they had all different architectures. Some had completely different ways of representing values that the computer would understand. This I'm talking about very, very early days, right? This is before our time as well, right? So there was no such thing as the letter A being the value 65 in decimal. That's now ASCII. That is a standard. But that didn't exist at one point, and everyone did things differently. There was no way to get those computers to talk to each other without special equipment. Yeah. So we started getting standards, and things started getting standardized, and so on and so forth. But the one thing that is very difficult to standardize is the processor, because it's so low down, it's so unique to the instruction set it's running, and that's why we still have x32 and x64 and Titanium 64 and ARM and all these different architectures for the different companies that make the physical silicone that works differently to each other. and it's been only since mobile, I'd say, that ARM has really kind of exploded and has become a standard in its own. It was x86 before that. Like that was like the go-to. It absolutely decimated the rivals. It was the biggest platform on the market. Now ARM has taken over a huge chunk of that. And now with the M1 and M2 and everything else that's happening with ARM running on desktop, that's even bigger deal. So I think having another platform, and that's where RISC-V comes in, taking it back, that is standardized, that all the manufacturers can get behind the same standard of machine architecture. That is the thing that you program against. It doesn't matter if the chip is made by a different company or not. As long as it runs the same architecture, your code will run the same on all of them. And that's the key there. And there's not been anything like RISC-V before. So having that support in Dart is a huge, big deal. Huge, big deal. Sorry for banging on about that, but I think
that's cool. It's great.
One of
the things to remember is that, one of the things to remember is that during those sort of middle days, well, it's still going on in some respect, is that chips only have so much space that you can put devices on the chip. And different companies had different goals as to, we're going to be the fastest floating point processor out there, or we're going to be the best way to have multiple layers of cache in our instruction pipeline. And that optimization is similar to why different programming languages look different, in that they're optimized for a particular set of tasks. And that's why they're not all identical programming languages. I mean, Ada came and went, so it's like we're all dealing with different languages.
The other side of that is just the power that computers have got now, and the power, just the amount of memory, the amount of power compute. Whole thing has. Oh, hello. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah,
thanks.
Back.
Sorry.
Sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, the power and like the memory that computers have now, it becomes, those specific use cases are becoming very slim and far between, right? You still have processors that are unique to certain jobs, like a video encoder or something. But when it comes to computing in general, like it's very much the market of like a general purpose computer now, right? Like there's so many, like you don't have to go for the unique as much as you used to, right?
Right.
I'm going to get off the topic, but keep your questions coming in, everyone. And if you're just doing the stream now, make sure you put Q in front of your question, and we will get to it in the chat. We've still got quite some time left if you want to get him in. I will bring this up. This is just since we're not that one, this one. This is the RISC-V official website, RISC-V.org, and they've actually got here available boards right now. So I was looking at the Raspberry Pi, and so effectively, don't quote me on this because I haven't tried it, but you should be able to get the Sci-Fi Hi-Five board here, which is a RISC-V rival to quite a lot of the ARM boards. You can see here, 16 gig of DDR, 32 meg of onboard flash, gigabit Ethernet, micro SD card. This is a power, look, USB Gen 2, 3.2. This is quite a beast of a little machine, and this is going to be 64-bit, so on, and this can run Dart code now, right? That's a big thing, I don't know what the RISC-V support is like in Flutter, right? But the point is, if it's in Dart, it's going to be in Flutter soon enough. There's quite a few, like Max Duino kit, RISC-V, AI and IoT. I've seen a few of these actually. I don't know if you guys have seen these. There's actually a few that have AI devices in them now. So they have AI specific chips for running things like what are they called?
Machine learning, right?
Yeah, machine learning models. But you can get there's a couple of standards for machine learning models anyway, and where basically you can run them in hardware and get a huge performance boost from doing them.
Wow.
Low-fi system, little evaluation boards. I don't know. There's a lot on offer. Gapduino, SparkFun, Red.
Are we at Skynet yet? Then we must be getting close to Skynet.
Oh, God, I'm not joking. Have you guys seen the last couple of months? What was the DALI the DALI AI system? You type it across.
That's amazing.
And it comes up with a completely it literally just. I saw someone type in Mad Max Muppets in Mad Max. Mad Max in Muppet style or something like that, and they literally got completely Muppets puppets with like tattoos and like spikes coming out their heads and whatever else on motorcycles in a desert. And I'm like, what? like this is nuts. Anyway, in a good way, like an interesting way, right? So, yeah. Hey, Richard. How can I add a loading screen to a Flutter web app? So there is actually an example of this. I actually used it recently. Now, where was it? I think it was in the Gallery app. I think the Gallery app does it. It actually supports loading. There's it's gonna bug me now.
I think
this native splash screen, which allows you to set up an image.
They actually added it in the last version of Flutter. They released. Oh, it's Flutter 3. In Flutter 3, they specifically introduced splash screens on web. So that it was a new feature. Hang on. Let me find it. I know it was in there. Oh, that's gonna bug the hell out of me. It was definitely then. I can't. What's new in Flutter 3? Let's see if it's in there. That's splash screen. Web app life cycles. Here we go. Customizing web app initialization. There is a documentation page on it apparently, and here it is in the chat. So right. Like
they're going to put it on the screen. Okay.
So here we go. Customizing web app initialization. This is actually I followed it myself or something. So there you go.
Yeah.
So basically, when it generates the page, you get this new loader thing, and you can like do whatever you want to kind of like flex the loader. But there's actually a talks about how it works and all the rest of it. Here we are, displaying a progress indicator.
Yeah.
So if you go in, you basically just add this like loading tag in there. This is just an edited version of what's already in there. And you add your load event, and then you can say, load the entry point. And once it's loaded, then initialize the engine. And once it's initialized, then you can run the app. And this is kind of like, in that time, you can kind of show like a little splash. So if you go look at the example in this initialization code here, so this is the one I was thinking of, the Gallery app. This has a little bit of CSS with some animations in it, which basically displays the gallery icon in the middle of the screen. And once it finishes loading, it kind of like zooms out the screen. It's quite cool. And that's it. It's simple as like putting a bit of CSS in, and then you just put in these. You can see here, it adds the class of main done and it done once it's finished. And then when you add those, it does the animations, basically. So, you can do that. It's pretty straightforward. And there's a documentation page on it with all the details. There you go. Hopefully that helps, Richard. You came to the right place to answer that question. Right.
Yes.
Robert. Hey, Robert.
Right here.
YouTuber extraordinaire himself, Robert Burridge, has asked us.
Indeed.
Using GraphQL, how do you go about handling the Dart data models? Do you make all the fields nullable, as you can fetch just part of the data if wanted? So this is, this is the nature of any. This is the nature of anything that you do when it comes to the incomplete data models. I over several projects over many years, I've had the same problem of I want to get some data from the server but not all the data, but then sometimes once I have that partial object, I want to go get the full object from the server. It gets complicated. What would I do? I wouldn't make the fields nullable. I would make separate. If it was me, I would make separate model objects that declare just like. You could have like, let's say, I know you're downloading a user account. You could have like partial user model or user and name only model, and like be specific about what fields you're going to get. Because the problem you're going to get when you have nullable fields everywhere is suddenly every time you want to access one of those fields, you have to check if it's not null. You have to give it a default value. It becomes nasty. The other side of this is you could. Sorry, I will say up front. When you take that data, the JSON data from the GraphQL response, and decode that, you could provide default values there. So they're definitely not nullable, but they're at least given default same values. But then you need to know that they're unset. So, if you're using enums, you can have like a custom enum called unset or not set or empty. It gets complicated. There's a few different ways of approaching it. Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah. So I would say that one thing that happens if you get the right layering in is that you're going to have a data transfer object that sits really close to your API.
DTOs.
And that's the kind of thing that you can have a bunch of nullables in, even though logically when that data is needed by your app, it's going to have values for all those so that you don't have to have null checks all the way through your code. I'd also suggest the use of FP-Dart, which is functional programming for Dart, FP-Dart's option class for those, because then it's not just a null. It's you're forced when you're looking at one of those to decide, is this not something present or is this something present? And it kind of like adds a strong type to null, which is really kind of fun. So I would suggest both of those in the data transfer object layer only. You don't have to put options deeper up in or further up in your code towards the view. Just keep it down in this DTO layer.
I mean, it's one of the basic things that I think a lot of people do wrong. Well, I say people, I mean, a lot of developers do wrong when building apps, is they don't think about having multiple models, multiple domain models in their apps, right? So what they'll do is they'll have one model that they get for the network that they want to use in all the UI, and then they have to do all this like juggling to make it do what they want to do in the UI. And it's like, because it's the data model, it's like, no, these are different models for different purposes, but most people just don't go through the trouble of going, I want no have a model that I'm transacting with the network that is my data model, that I can fill in partial stuff, or I can fill in sync IDs or other special values that I need to send across the network. That's over here. Then what the user sees is your view model. That is a separate thing entirely. It doesn't have to be like the MVVM pattern or anything like that. I'm just saying you kind of got a model that represents your view. And then you could even have another complete set of models that you have within your app. Like, they don't have to be one domain of models that are used for one singular purpose across the entirety of your app, because normally that can't be done, right? Like, you'll end up kicking yourself when you get to the point of trying to, you've added nullable fields, you've had optional things here and there, and before you know it, your models are all like a Frankenstein of who knows what, and it's just not good. All you need to do is have multiple models, and then have some simple functions which say convert from this model to this model, or from this to this, or have a mapper function. Then when you convert from one to another to different layers of your app, it also forces you to separate your layers, because you cannot interact with this other layer because you don't have the model for it, right? Like, you have to convert it over. Yeah, sorry.
It also insulates you as an abstraction. It insulates you when you have to change from, say, the way AWS does it to the way that Firebase does it, or if you go to a completely different vendor and stuff. Having an isolation between your API and then rebuildable data transfer objects, and then your actual data domain for your app, that layer of insulation will protect you in the long run.
One of the worst things I ever did, it was one of my very first Flutter apps, actually, I did with Firebase. And I put Firebase documents across everything. I had. Do you remember there's this? I think it's still the thing, like snapshot list or something like that. Well, basically, you give it a Firebase snapshot, and it would display the list, and you could give it like the item builder or whatever, and it would kind of work it all out for you and make the request off. And it's like, this is great. This is awesome. It does it all for me. But the problem was, I'm now just putting all that Firebase specific domain language of documents and how you use documents and how you update documents all across the app, sprinkled it like sprinkles, chocolate sprinkles, all across the app, and it was hell to put it all out and get rid of it. So yeah, don't do my mistake. Don't do that.
I just want to say, I can't believe we ended up there when we started with GraphQL.
Oh, we screw up, but hopefully we impart. My hope is that I do go on a bit, but I hope that I impart knowledge to people that don't have it, or there's tips or tricks or something I can say that will help, right? Because anything to get you that to the end line faster, right?
No, of course.
Who wants to try and pronounce this one? Do you think the end silent? Is it Zubeki? Do you think it is? I'm going to say Zubeki. Sorry, guys. Sorry if I got your name wrong. Anyway, how do you automatically reconnect a WebSocket when disconnected, maybe due to poor network using WebSocket channel? You just said it. You detect when it got closed, and then you connect again. It really depends on your specific code. I think you're probably having a problem where you're integrating with WebSocket quite tightly with what you're doing. You probably need to abstract it out. If you abstract it out so that you're like firing events back when things happen on channel, then you can connect and reconnect as much as you want without affecting the rest of your app. So again, it's about isolation. Yeah, I mean, like you could just have a little class that wraps your WebSocket communication, and that has an instance, and you just create a new instance once it gets disconnected and try connecting again. There is a really cool package I do want to share actually around this. So if we go to pub.dev and look up a package called Retry, this is the one that most people don't know exists. It's made by Google team members, obviously an unofficial package. Retry for Dart. This is really nice. Like it provides a generic way to retry asynchronous functions. So you can see here, basically, you do await retry. You put your asynchronous function in here with a timeout, for example, like this, and then you can do retry if a certain exception happens, and it will keep retrying. But then you can give it actually. There's another hidden parameter here for options. You can give it what kind of retry options you want, and by default, it's this. So each attempt increases the delay, and this is called exponential backoff, right? So default is 8 attempts, exponentially backing off the time each time. So this is quite important. Most people don't realize how important exponential backoff actually is in mobile, and that is when someone disconnects, it can be for a very short period of time because of a bad connection, or it can be for a long period of time because they're going through, I don't want to try and go through a tunnel or something, right? So by just doing 3 quick, like a lot of app builders will do this thing where they go retry 3 times in a quick loop. So it connects, it fails, it connects, it fails, it connects, it fails, and then that's it, it's over. Because that would never normally be the case. It's never normally going to be like the likelihood of golden ratio or something. The likelihood of like it actually connecting up again in that time is very slim. If you do the exponential back off, it might be that was a short blip and connecting again works. But then again, the longer the time takes to reconnect and it extends that time, it will eventually get there normally within first few tries because of the exponential backoff logic. So.
I blame Dart team for this, because if they named the package like retriable web channel sockets or something, people would have connectable web sockets or something. People would know, but. Honestly, retry is a better name.
The point about here is that this is generic, because you can put this on any future, which I really like. Like that is so flexible. I can see so many use cases for that. So the package is retry. I'll pop it in the chat. A link in the chat.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Moving on. Is there a pattern/approach to sizing UI widgets, text, etc. in
proportion
to screen state available, or should you think more of mobile, tablet screen, desktop screen?
Go watch the last 8 shows. We cover this every week.
I think the point here is the worst thing you could imagine that you've got a mobile phone like UI, and you've got this text, and you make the text. Say it's the word hello, and it's big, bold, and it reaches across the screen. And now you run that same app on a tablet. Suddenly, hello is massive on your screen. And then you run it on a desktop, and it blows up the entire screen. You would never want to have that word that big on that screen. So proportionally sizing fonts and proportionally sizing most things is not normally the case that you want.
Yeah.
Right. And we learned that a lot of us in that have been doing mobile learned that a long time ago when tablet came out, because everything was mobile and the tablet came out when everything scaled up, and it was like that just doesn't work. Like you realize very short succession, you try and run your mobile apps on a tablet, and it just feels terrible. It looks terrible. It just doesn't work. So the point here is about setting making apps responsive, and there's some great information on like the Android developer site about responsiveness and multiple screen sizes. They were, in fact, I think before Apple, decided to make every phone size under the sun, it was predominantly an Android thing that you would have so many different device screen sizes because each manufacturer could do their own different thing. So there's a lot of good resources around the Android tree, as it were.
Also, I remember that. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Randall.
No, I've talked enough. Go.
One thing that I remember is that even when material design first came out, they had this like left pane and the like detail view and everything aligned for us. But overall, like for example, for me, the main difference is that you need to think of your target platform for sure. Like Simon said, like for example, if you're on an Android phone and if you go to an Android tablet, somehow you can find your way around it. But if you run an Android phone application on a Windows device, then you would feel lost because of the way that it looks, because of the way that it behaves and so on. So like the pattern is basically keep in mind the platform that you're targeting and arrange everything accordingly. This is what I would say. Like for example, in the super list, the dream was running the UI for once and running everything all together. But if you look at the desktop app, it is totally very different than the mobile one because they are actually two different apps and they need to behave differently. So that is why you need to keep that in mind.
Screen real estate is a big thing. Like make effective use of it as well, right? Show more content.
Exactly.
The advice I give most people just consists of a couple major things. One, I really like to use Layout Builder to get cut points only. So in other words, if it's under 500, this is going to be one column. If it's anything greater, it's going to be two columns because those just feel right to me when I'm, and I test it in the web. I pull a web big and small and kind of go, does this feel right at every stage? And I can fine tune those. So Layout Builder gives me cut points. Never, never, never use the numbers that come out of that for anything other than making a decision.
Yeah.
Don't then say, well, that means my top app bar should be this many pixels. No, don't do that. That's not right. Don't use those numbers that way. For anything else, for just like general layout, if you want like a third of the screen to be your left nav bar and you want the other 2/3 to be your content, you can do that with the flex widgets. Like that would be a row that has a flex of 1 and a flex of 2 on the top two elements of it, and then everything falls down from there. So as soon as you start naming specific pixels, you're probably heading down the dark path. You really ought to think about how column and row can have widgets in them, like expanded and things, expanded and flexible, that have a flex factor. And that will give you your ratios of the various things in that column or in that row. And it really works slick.
Simon showed that one because I was going to talk about that. Fractionally sized box.
Oh yeah. I was about to bring that. So it's in behind the scenes here. Yeah. So there's a widget called fractionally sized box, which is also another one that's very underused, frankly. Align is also another one that. This is an interesting one that most people don't realize when they read this. An Align widget sizes itself off the child size. One of the nice things about this is you can actually set the width factor on an Align. So when you create, you can create a width factor and a height factor on an Align widget when you construct one, and you can set this to 0.5, and it'll be 50% of the size of the child. It'll also be 2.0, it'll be 200% of the child. So the restriction is not coming from the parent; it's coming from the child, which is which is an interesting, dimension there. And the same goes here for fractionally sized box. This allows you to size again the width and height based on the
parent.
The parent the parent's total space, right? Which is size of the child, fraction based. So the two things are basically Align and fractionally sized box. Essentially. They feel the same. They've got the same parameters and everything, but one is sized by the parent and one is sized by the child. And Align, Align is actually, in fact, under the hood, Align is actually, I think it's called a shifted box, if I remember rightly. I think it's a shifted box or something, and it's used in a bunch of widgets. Fundamentally, like the concept is overall. So again, I think align is also very underutilized. Most people just do it to align something to some portion of the screen, but there's so much more you can do. I remember doing a stack of playing cards that were overlapped using an align widget, because I could just give each one like a 10th and say align to the right, and they would all stack over each other by 1/10 or whatever it was, or however many dips it was or whatever. And they would stack up on top of each other because of the rendering order. So there's some interesting things you can do.
Also, like if you go to Stack Overflow, like one last sentence about this, sorry. Like if you go to Stack Overflow and like when you see people asking questions about like, oh, okay, I want this to be as big as my child and so on. And all of a sudden some random person says, okay, use align. I don't know why, but it works. The reason is it is actually working because of the things that Simon explained. You know? So
read the docs. Always read the docs.
Yeah. Exactly. It is really helpful.
You face east and you shake this voodoo stick and it becomes exactly the right size.
It's kind of interesting, right? We like, you know, we talk about all these widgets and describe them all. But I think the key that I've had is just that I've been practiced with them long enough. Does that kind of make sense? Like I've just done it long enough. So I think I'd say to anyone is just go look at the SDK, go click. I remember spending ages just going through all the implementers, going seeing what classes link to what other classes, just trying to understand what's there, what they're called, and what they do. And then when you go and say, I need to try and solve this thing with the UI, you grasp at straws and go, okay, there's that thing, there's that widget. I remember reading that. You go into the SDK, you go find it. And each time you do that, you reinforce in yourself, okay, when I have this problem, we're trying to lay something out, I'm going to use this widget over here. And it kind of just, or I use this combination of widgets. And before you know it, you know, you're just, UI is coming at your fingertips. You know, it's all straightforward. Roberto, welcome back to the stream. I think he's one here every week almost, I think. How to convert image URL and upload those images to your server.
I think first you upload it, then you get the URL.
Well, no, here's the thing, right? So here's the problem, Roberto. It's not very clear. Obviously, it's a short question, so we'll try and keep it succinct. An image URL can be a file URL. That means it can be off your local machine. It can also, so to be clear, if you're talking about a HTTP URL, that's a foreign URL, that's from a remote service, you need to download it. In which case, you just do a HTTP GET, download all the bytes, the body bytes, and put them in either in memory, in memory or in a file. And then you just make a request to upload those and upload them, right? Like that's the way you would do it. Like what you want to look into for gunning uploading is called multi-part MIME, which is the standard that's given for uploading form data with file attachments. It's a standard. You can go look it up. There's actually I think the HTTP package supports multi-part MIME, or if there isn't, there is definitely a dark code in the standard package for it. Well, I don't remember where it is now. Shelf multi-part. Oh, multi-part. There you go. It's a package called multi-part, a dark package for decoding multi-part form data. Oh, for decoding. Multi-part _ request.
Can you put your screen to do?
Oh yeah, I'll put this up. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just used Google multi-part MIME. There you go. Look. Shelf multi-part for the server side. Decoding, I guess it's server side. Yeah, a plugin for sending multi-part MIME requests and get streaming of progress. That sounds quite handy. I've never used it before. There you go. So you can create a multi-part request. You add your file, an image path from your local hard drive, let's say, because add file. I'm sure you can add bytes or something and add the raw bytes. Yeah. You send your request, and then you can get a progress listener and see the progress of the upload. There you go. So these are like file support, multi-part support, and a multi-page form.
Mine was from Dart Team, right?
Sorry, yeah, I've seen one. I don't know if it is in a HTTP package. I kind of feel like there's multi-part MIME. Yeah, multi-part file, multi-part request. There you go. I thought there was. There you go. So this is the, when you use the standard HTTP package, this builds up a multi-part request. There you go. So you say, this is the URL I'm connecting to. I'm trying to do a post to this URL. You can put whatever filter on. You can add a multi-part file, and then here you go from path, and you can give it like a path. In this case, it's a package path or something, and the MIME type. But I'm assuming that if I find, where's it, multi-part file, there you go, from bytes. So you need to give it a byte. So from string, from bytes, and I guess, I'm sure I saw from file there, but wherever. Yeah, static constructor from file. So this is a future one. So it goes and reads the file and puts it in there. Yeah, and then you send it up to the server, and then you get your response back. Nice and simple. So multi-part request and HTTP package. Yeah, you said converting. There's no convert is probably the wrong word. Like you don't need to convert a URL. You need to just download the content. So URL is just a reference to a location. Okay, let's crack on. Oh, hold on. I like to make an Uber. Show only drivers near to the user. Should I make calculations in the server side before sending it to the client, or should I send all drivers and calculate the client? We'll put it this way. Let's say you have 100,000 drivers.
Loading, spinner.
Yeah, right.
Spinner.
Right. You're not gonna. I mean, sure, that's a lot, and you could just do it the first way. You could send it down and just filter them out in the client display, as you were saying, and that would be one way of doing it at the very beginning. But you really need to change that, right? Because as soon as you start getting any number, the more and more drivers you get on the entire system as a whole is going to slow down that screen, right? And the idea is also, if you're updating the positions of all those drivers all the time, now you've now just adding complexity, adding size. So yeah, ideally what you want to do is filter it on the server side. And to be honest, Roberto, you should be using a I would give you my personal recommendation for doing things like this with mapping technology. You want to be using Postgres on the server side. You want to be using PostGIS, which is the plugin for Postgres that gives you geo support. And that allows you to put geo boundaries and say, is this point within this boundary as part of your query to the database? And it solves it at the fastest possible level in the data set. It has so much support. You can do like is on a sphere, recalculate points, do trigonometry, and it's all done with built-in functionalities of PostGIS. It's really super simple to do. Highly recommend doing it that way. And it means that you can just do a filtered set. So when a user comes online, they get added to their flag, gets set on a table, online true, the driver. And then you just do a query that says select all drivers that are set to online to true that are within 3 miles or 300 meters or whatever it is of this coordinate. And it will just spit them out to you. And you send them down to the app and you're done. Right? Make your life easier. Use the right technology. You try and do this with Firestore, and it's literally impossible to do accurately with any sense of speed. It just does not support, as much as it has geo points. There's just not, that it doesn't have the. There's actually one of the guys in the community, Thomas Burkhart, that made a package around this.
Yeah,
he was trying to use it. It turns out it just doesn't support it. It's not officially supported. It's broken the support. They don't support it. It's just not a thing. So geopoints. And if you want to use geohashes, which is another way, and that's where you take a latitude, longitude, you interlace the binary bits so that it becomes one number, and it allows you to do kind of like a Z depth on just a string. It works, but you end up with large blocks of large chunks in that are, what should I say? That are not going to be visible to the user. You're going to get lots of extra data. It works to a certain degree, and probably it's better used as a cache on your local device, where you can like use it as tile cache basically. But for doing these kind of like fast, repetitive latitude, longitude lookups on don't do it on the server side like that. It just doesn't work. Use the right tool for the right job, and I can tell you right now, Postgres with PostGIS is the one for that.
And like
or it's an AWS solution for it.
Hello everyone. Now, like one thing that I want to there are actually two things that I want to say. Like one thing is I remember at least from 2019 DroidCon Italy that there's a talk directly about this topic. It's about like Android, but it also applies here as well. The secondly, like always keep in mind that like you need to understand that there's a huge theory, and if anyone, for example, wrote his master's thesis about this topic, so you need to understand that there are already solutions out there as a component that is working. So if you're using it, just go for it. That's all.
I just remembered I had to do something like this when I was looking at stuff around the user, and I had to come up with this whole entire API around this. This was a while ago, and I came up with this notion of having like a circle around the user, and when the user's map moves, or when essentially their position of view moves, I try and overlay circles like so that there's a certain amount of overlap. And the circumference isn't that big that you request too much data from the server. Because if you zoom out, and then the other side of it, let's say you're looking at, let's say London, right? It's a large area. You're zoomed in on London. You see like maybe 5 cars. Let me make it Uber example, for example. You see 5 cars, and then you zoom the map out. What you don't want to do is load 100,000 cars. Now you zoomed out the map to see everyone, right? What you actually need to do is kind of load like a light layer of cars that you want to load some from here and some from there, or something like that. It's a really complex topic, and there's, as you said, there's people do master's thesis around these things.
Yeah.
Like it's not simple, right? So yeah, but just yeah, be aware that it use the right tools, the right jobs. That's what I say. Yeah, and yeah, definitely use WebSockets. The WebSocket is a great solution if you've got data on the server side. Postgres, PostGIS with WebSockets, it means that you can register to listen to a certain vehicle, and then you can get kind of like get updates being sent down instantly to the user, and they see it moving around the map. It'd be awesome. So yeah. All right, Richard, is there a way to run another Flutter app from a running app, mobile or desktop?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say that like when desktop apps for Flutter came out, I did a talk in 2019, like February, and I was actually able to run a mobile application inside the desktop application to prove this point, because at the end of the day, whatever you have on the screen is a widget. So you just run another widget inside the widget, and that's all. You just need to be careful that everything is working on your end properly. Yeah.
I'm going to give the stream over to you guys. I'll be back in just a minute.
Oh no, we're on our own.
Oh my God. Let's end this and go back home.
yeah, right. There we go. We still got 5 in the queue. Get your questions in now. We're getting close to the end of the show, but we are still taking questions. So get your question in now and make sure you get answered this week, or you're going to have to wait until next week.
Yeah.
Okay. From Roberto, the question is, any performance impact to use a lot of Future Builder to show a button loading on the network calls? Show a button loading. You're loading a button from the network? That's going to be fun.
Server-side rendering.
A Future Builder is nothing more than some code framework that says if the feature's not complete yet, take this path. If the feature is completed, take that path. There's really no cost itself to a Future Builder. So I'm not sure the scope of what you're trying to answer here. Now, if you're waiting for the feature to complete because you're doing a network call, even to figure out what goes on the button, you got some timing issues there, because compared to the 60 times a second that build could be run, you're going to have 2 or 3 seconds probably to even get to the quickest nearby machines and get an answer back. So you're going to have to show something while that's not there yet. And that's the point of a Future Builder, is you can say, if the feature's not complete yet, please show this as a placeholder for it. So I don't know how to answer that better without more input. Is that fair? Do you think?
I mean,
you got some.
I was just going to show. I was going to pull a Simon move.
Different. You might change the size, make it slimmer, or like, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, let me make this just bigger. So
there you go.
Oh my God.
Oh.
It is for people who has classes. So what I wanted to say was just like Future Builder simply is a stateful widget.
Yeah.
Like,
go look at the source code.
like if you're not afraid of using stateful widgets, if you're a good citizen, you shouldn't be afraid of using future.
No one
builders.
should be afraid of using stateful widgets.
Yeah,
I remember this whole thing. I literally remember this whole thing that went through the Flutter community right near like alpha, and it was late alpha beta, where it's like I was like, let's do everything. What was the state management solution?
scope model. No, it was before that.
It's what Hillel was using
widget?
in Voice Ninja.
Redux.
Redux, yeah. It was let's do everything Redux, and every widget should be stateless. And I'm like, it don't work at all. It just does not work. So don't do that. Yeah.
We had like I have a really tiny story. Like we did this meditation app around like 2017, 18 or so. Like it was called like Key Meditation. And we used Redux as well because, like Flutter was new to us and Redux was the only one properly working. Dude, like we had so much battery consumption, so much memory problems because of like holding everything in one place. That was a huge problem back then. Yeah, that's all the story. That's all.
I mean, the concept is nice, right? I like the concept, but I just, it needs to be. I don't know. I'm not convinced totally. Yeah, that's what we'll leave it at. Oh, we did that one. Okay. Oh, I will mention actually. As I came back, I heard Randall say this. Yeah, if you're doing something over the network and you're using a future builder, what you can actually do is, well, I have not seen anyone do this. But there could be a nice little widget here, and that is you only show a loading spinner once 450 milliseconds has elapsed, or thereabouts. And that's a quite unique number, but it's the perceived delay of the human brain for input is around 400 milliseconds. Like you'll perceive that there's a delay in something happening if it happens longer than about 450 milliseconds. It's a paper, scientific papers on this. So what you could do is rather than blinking up, because there's nothing more annoying than running software and seeing loading spinners blink for just a few milliseconds, just all over the place, right? Because it did have to load, but it loaded quicker than needed, as it were. Yeah. So just don't display anything for 400 milliseconds, and then display your loading spinner if it's longer than that. And it's a simple. You could do a little like delayed loading spinner, right? Yeah. And just doing that as a stateful widget would make a big difference in the performance of your app, the perceived performance of your app.
Yeah.
So you recommend like just a blank square and then the spinner after 400.
Yeah. Because I mean,
okay, that's cool.
Because I mean, like there's something like within that period of time, it feels like it instantly appears, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a loading spinner, you're kind of like jamming something in between that, and it doesn't feel like it loads. It feels jittery. It feels
like a glitch,
unclean almost. Does that? Yeah, like a glitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always better not to display something that might flicker or might continuously like change very quickly to the user. Always have a timeout delay in front of that.
We should go the other direction and just have it show nothing, and then if it takes longer than a second, pops up a snack bar, and then if it takes longer than 3 seconds, hold on, we're still getting there. We're almost there.
Yeah. It's like when you're on a phone when you're on a phone call. We'll get you a call soon. It's like, don't tell me that. Just pick up the phone when you're ready. You're like, oh my god. It's just I think more annoying when you're listening to that music, right? And then suddenly it's like you hear it interrupt. You're like, oh, they're there, and then it's like, no, we're still. Your call is important to us. It's like, no, so annoying.
Oh yeah, that's what we should have. Widgets that put on hold music. While we're waiting for a spinner to load.
Lift music, yeah. Elevator music.
Your call is very important to us.
Anyway.
Okay, I've got to call him. I've got to call him for that. I'm doing one.
I really love it if you could. Can't read Korean. I would love it if you could like put like the English phonetic pronunciation of your name. I'm really curious what this name is.
Yeah, Actually, they said like it's Him-chan Han.
It's in our chat. It's in our chat.
Oh.
Yeah, it's Him-chan Han.
Him-chan Han.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Wait, right. I know a couple of words in Korean. Maybe it's correct.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Can I develop Google Chrome extension with Flutter? Yes, you can. In fact, There's been a Medium article and a few blog posts around this very thing. So just Google that, and I'm sure you come up with it.
Yeah.
Flutter Chrome extension. A Medium article: how to create a Flutter Chrome extension. Building. Here's the one I recommend because it's from one of our long-term community members. We bring it up on stream. Yeah. Suzvik Biswas, and there it is there. So I put the link in the chat for anyone. Building a Chrome extension using Flutter. There you go. And there's a whole sort of guide and some various information and so on and so forth. I won't bore you, but you can read all about it. So yes, in short, you can. Moving on.
Yes, you can.
Roberto says, "Is there a way to exclude fields in two JSON functions so you can?" We'd like to. Yes, you can. Yeah. So just on your field, just add @JSON key. I think it is JSON key, JSON name. It's an annotation, and you just say ignore true.
Yeah.
And it just ignores the field. There you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
There's we talk about these things, and for those that are new, it might be nice just to wrong button. It might be good just to bring this up on the stream. So if I go to like pop.dev, you've got JSON serializable, which is one of the sort of second party, as it were. It's from some of the Google team members have run this. In fact, I think Kevin Moore is the big man behind this. JSON serializable here. And this is like the sort of go-to underlying sort of JSON package. There's plenty of them. There's freeze. There's all sorts, right? But this basically, this is the thing that actually, this package is the one that actually does the compilation. So this is the one you put in your dev dependencies, and JSON annotation is what you put in your runtime dependencies, because this has the annotations that you use at runtime, or vice versa. So I can't remember which one, but yeah, if we go to API here, you'll see you have JSON key, and in JSON key it has where is it? It says scroll across. That's I would think it was there. Yeah, to JSON, so you have it return nothing, I guess. Where is it? Ignore. There you go.
Exactly.
Ignore true, and I think it is written up somewhere. So down here you'll see true if the generation ignore this field completely. I'm sure you could probably also just like override the from or to JSON and just do something special for that particular field. That's another option. But
or you can parse it yourself.
Do your own, you can also do your own converters for specific fields, which I've done before as well. Yeah, so there's all sorts. An annotation used to generate private field containing the contents of a JSON file. I've never seen that before. How about that?
Wow.
I don't know what that's for. There you go. There's another one there. JSON value.
Humpday
you use these on enum values for that. So when it's serialized in enum, it gives it like a string value. I've used that before. JSON enum. Anyway, right, back to right, where were we? Yeah. So yes.
Another one.
Is there a way to position my widget depending on the specific pixel of the background image? Like positioning in different widgets seems almost impossible. Is there a way to position my widget depending on a specific pixel of the background? Like positioning. I think this is kind of, is this like a particular position, like as an offset, like pixel offset, X, Y offset? Is that what I'm getting from this?
That is what I understand, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a good point to that, because it's a very bad idea. So the problem here is what happens. Let's say your image is full HD, 1920 by 1080, and then the position you put your widget in is in the bottom right corner somewhere, right? 1,000 pixels across, 1,000 pixels down, let's say, right? Then what happens is your app gets loaded on screen that's half HD. Now it has a full quarter of the screen. Suddenly, that widget that you positioned right down there is now off the screen somewhere and can't be seen by the user. This is why this is a bad idea. Positioning things in absolute coordinates is never a good idea. However, there is a trick behind this that can be used. And in fact, I've used it myself. And that is what you do is you put a size box with your size of your image. Let's say you put your image in the background, and then you can use a stack with positioned to position this particular left, top, or X, Y coordinates, your widgets or your text or whatever it is. Yeah. This replicates an image map of the HTML days. that would take some people back, but basically you then wrap the entire thing in a fitted box. And what a fitted box will do is it will take your original, keep all the scale of those positions will be exactly relative to the same to the background, but will scale it down to fit what's on the screen. Yeah. That can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending, right? But for most things, that is actually perfectly what you need. And it means that you can position things based on the background image, but also have it scale nicely and display to the user. So you want to stack with positioned to position the children, and then just make sure the entire thing is wrapped in a fitted box. And it needs to have, for a fitted box to work, it needs to have a size. So you need to wrap it in a, the child of the fitted box should be a sized widget or a sized box in some way. Anything from you guys?
Image maps were horrible when they came out, but they were increased what you could do with the web, which was nice. It's like, I remember, you couldn't quite get to that before.
I remember in HTML 4 or 3 building an image, building like a home screen, which was an image that I made that had like the buttons like going around on the screen, and you would highlight the area with like Dreamweaver or something like front page, and you'd be like, these pixels of this area are a button. When you click down the image map, do this. But it was really nice for things like maps. Like at the time, you'd have, before Google Maps was a thing, and like interactive scrolling maps, you had like a map on the screen. You could say, oh, when you click on this like area, like a I don't know, we have postcode there, zip codes or whatever, right? You click on this area, like go to the page for that area or something like that. You know, these were perfect for image maps, and these still have a practical use today. I saw someone in Flutter actually was doing like I think it was like a car. You click on the wheels and it would move the wheels, and you click on the hood and it moved the hood out. And that's kind of a very similar thing where you have like these, like almost like an image map, right? You have these things positioned, and then once you tap on that area of the screen, you want it to move, right?
Yeah, like one thing that I wanted to say is that like it's about the pixel topic that you mentioned in the beginning, Simon. Like you need to decide on how your image is going to behave as well. Like for example, if you decide to crop everything, all of a sudden everything is messed up as well. So I would like, even though there's a way to do it, I would recommend not doing it, to be honest. And just
to be honest, unless you're doing, and most people don't do UI. What's the name of it? Skeuomorphic.
Yeah,
skeuomorphic design, where you have like something that looks real but it's actually fake. That's when you kind of need that kind of thing, right? When you've had to pre-render your images. But for the most part, most UI, you should not be. You don't need to do. Unless you're doing that skeuomorphic stuff, you don't need it. Don't position things, with fixed sizes. Always use padding. Like say I want something 10 pixels away from another thing, or within this bounds, or whatever else. Like have it flexible. This way, the screen changes its width slightly. You haven't like completely scrapped your whole design.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Nilay.
Hi, Nilay. Nilay is a community manager on the Flutter team.
I mean, if you don't know Nilay, probably you are new to Flutter.
Yeah. Uzma says, how do Twitter keep updating stats on every tweet, like retweets, when we can see a counter keep growing? If implementing the same thing in Flutter, are we going to use, for example, streams for every list item? Yes. You got it.
Next question.
So it's what we were talking about earlier. Basically, the key here is, yes, it's a stream to the UI. So when the new data value comes in, it goes over the stream to the UI. The UI does SetState or something like that, and it rebuilds the UI and showing the new value. It's that simple. That's literally how you can do a counter that changes. The key is, how do you get that new data to the UI through that stream from your backend service? And there's many ways of doing that. You'll find like there's text event, you've got WebSockets, you've got long poll connections, you have push notifications. There's a bunch of ways of doing this, and they all have their pros and cons. When you're actively on the screen, I can tell you right now, Twitter uses WebSockets. And in fact, the app uses WebSockets as well. And a lot of people do that. So WebSockets are great for when you have short-lived notifications type connections. They're perfect for that. If you want something that's like asynchronous yet is not guaranteed for delivery, that's push notifications. So when you're just saying, oh, here there might be something that you're interested in, like let's say receiving an email notification, you'll get it eventually. There's no guarantee the delivery will be within instantaneous. So you can't say you get, let's say that tweet gets that plus, gets retweeted and you get that +1 notification. If they say there's a push notification, not only does it have to go all the way around the world and various servers and through your phone carrier and everything else to get to your phone, but it may take something of upwards of an hour, let's say, on a busy time, or 20 minutes. I can't remember what the SLA is, but it can be quite a long time. And for what? To say +1 to a user, when you might as well, whilst the user has that on, what you would normally do, and what I would do if I was building this, let's say Twitter app with tweets, is as that list scrolls, when that list item comes on the screen, right, there's a visibility detector widget that you can get. Also, just when the widget is built, because it's part of the screen when it's built. So in a init state, you go, okay, register for updates for this notification, and then when it goes off the screen, gets destroyed, you unregister for notifications, and then it will just have one socket connection that just does register, event, unregister. And when events come in for that same tweet ID, it will go over to that socket for the one that's registered and will update the UI. Super simple, super easy. You don't need to do any more complicated than that. Anything else from you guys? Sorry, I'm kind of going off on this.
No,
I do like this. This is one of my favorite features, right? I like Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, someone that like upvotes something, and it's immediately changing, or comment and immediately changed in front of you. You see it pop up. It's just so amazing. It feels so alive.
I think one thing you can do with WebSockets that might not be immediately obvious is you can have the payloads that are coming back to say update this tweet count, update that whatever count, can be directed at this end, at the client end, to specifically what they're actually updating and affecting. So it's kind of nice that way.
I would recommend that you don't, like, from a perspective of just bam. This is to the whoever's Usman here. Usman,
Usama, I think.
Usama. Oh my god, I'm terrible with names. Don't have multiple socket connections open. Every time you open up a new connection to a server, you add delay, you add cost, you have, especially with WebSockets. So I'm going to give you, you can go read up about this. If you're going to use anything, if this includes everyone on this, if you're going to look at WebSockets or introducing WebSockets, you'll get problems when they get to scale. And the problem to solve the scale thing is called ephemeral ports. Basically, every IP address can have a maximum of 65,000 ports. Not all of those are usable. So about, let's say, 50,000. Well, what happens when you have 100,000 users, 200,000 users? Well, that means you have to have multiple IP addresses. There's other ways of dealing with that. There's network assisted translation. There's all sorts of other things that have to work around to solve these problems. So all I'm going to say is each client should only have one WebSocket connection, and then you should use like an event-based bus or some system that goes over the top that just sends an event type and the parameters for that event across the channel and back and forth. Because having multiple open is just as it's suck on resources when it gets to scale. So don't do that. Anyway. Right. Next question, I guess. I don't know. I see Google. See, I lost context here. So if you have to make sure you keep some original context in your questions. I don't know. I see that Google uses Flutter heavily on its apps, like Google Search. I feel that the Flutter hand. Am I wrong? I just want to know. I don't know what he. Do you guys remember the previous question they were referring to? Because it's gone out of my head.
I have no idea.
It didn't make any sense even with that. So I don't know.
And next one.
Sorry. Hopefully that clarify your question. Maybe we'll get to it. Hey, he's back. How would you put it? Is that GUnio? GNU-ion? Like GNU, that's GNU, right? So GNU-ion? I don't know.
GNU-ion, maybe.
If you create a Chrome extension using Flutter, will it run on Dart or JavaScript. I find Dart can be better security features because of type safety. I try to avoid JavaScript on secure apps. Okay, so you've got a misconception there. Anything that is built with Dart is going to have type safety. Doesn't matter if it's compiled to JavaScript or not, because type safety is types exist. How to best put this? Your computer, your processor, your memory that's running in front of you on to do all those apps has no idea what a type is, right? It's a compilation step, right? It's part of the language of what you're compiling. Once it's compiled, it doesn't care about types normally, right? And dynamic types is another thing. I won't go into that. But the point here is that the idea is that what types do is give your program security for compilations. You know that this parameter has to be a string because I'd said it is a string, right? So you can't pass like an integer by mistake like you can in JavaScript and everything goes bang, right? Or in fact, it just interprets that, I don't know, a string of 0 as the number 0 or something, or false, and it all goes bang. So that's what you're trying to avoid, and that makes sense. But that's at that's at really the compilation. Now the point here is JavaScript is an interpreted language, which makes that not make sense. So what we're doing, as I say we, the loose we here, it's not me personally. What we do with Dart is you write with type safe, you do it in Dart, and it writes out JavaScript. That JavaScript, yes, is not type safe. However, it has built with a type safe language, meaning that it is effectively type safe, right? So you won't have those same things. You don't have those same problems you would have if you wrote it by hand with JavaScript. And that's literally the same way TypeScript works. So what TypeScript does is you write with TypeScript, it's type safe JavaScript. And then once the end result of that type safe code is have the .ts file, the .js file, which is your JavaScript, which again, then is the standard JavaScript. So JavaScript ends up being like a lower level language that isn't used in that way anymore, like manually, right? Because we want type safe in the web world. And this is why also the things like WASM is coming on strong in the web world, because fundamentally, we don't care about what language is written in. It has to run some code, right? So what WASM does is it brings it back down to that sort of assembler level, basic principles, and we get the power and throughput without any of the hassle of everything else on top. And it also means that the browser can do more of a one-to-one with regards to native machine code and the WASM code, and you get better performance that way. The only way you get that kind of performance from JavaScript is by running it through the JIT multiple iterations and hot path detection. You'll get there, but it'll be slow getting in comparison, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So in short, if you write a Chrome extension with Flutter, yes, you'll be using it in Dart, but you'll be running in JavaScript. And you will have type safety and all those security features, so it's perfectly fine. Sorry, banging on a bit there. This is one for you guys. I know. I have a software as a service (SaaS) application written with Flutter and Firebase. I've now undertaken. No, I've no undertake to revert the data deleted by users. I now have to undertake to revert the data deleted by users. Am I responsible for the availability of the service? Should I trust Firebase or get backups?
I can take this one. It's a cloud topic. So like overall, like when you use
just restate the exact. What is he asking here? Just to make sure we're clear.
I mean, what I understand is basically this person wants to be sure that technologies like Firebase, etc., are responsible for like whatever whatever they need to do, and should they just trust that, or should they have multiple backups by themselves? And the answer is, if you're using these technologies, all of these solutions are cloud solutions, which are using in the low level, they're using the technologies that you would be using to host your backends or like your like cloud options. That is why if you're using these technologies, they promise you that everything will be all right and everything will be reachable in a high percentage level.
Right.
That is why.
What happens if they lose your data though? I mean,
then
it's possible. Like anything that is possible.
do you know,
I would say my whole company, let's say my whole livelihood of living is based on this company that I've made. I'm not going to trust some third party with that data to keep it safe and to keep it backed up in case something does go wrong. I've lost my whole life, right? Like I've lost my income, right? So I would say it's up to you to make a backup. But yes, you should rely on the system, of course.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean,
Yeah.
no, like, okay, I will give, like, recently I've seen, like, from like one of the resources, I've seen that this happening is like, it's a chance, but it's a very low chance, which is like the person who made the research said that the possibility of a meteor coming and hitting your house is exactly the same as they are going to be losing your data. So, but still, like, it's a possibility. So you need to be careful.
The other thing is availability, right? We've seen it before where whole chunks of the internet literally drop offline when one of the cloud providers goes offline for some reason. Like it happened with Azure, it's happened with GCP, it's happened with AWS, it's happened with them all, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other side of that is also making, when you get to the level of a company that's that big, after those incidents occur, they realize, oh, we should not be putting out all our eggs in one cloud provider.
Exactly.
We should be, using another cloud provider and having a failover system, right? Yeah. But that's when you get to the size of mega $1 million, $1 billion companies here. Like when it's like, because of that lost, imagine how much revenue Facebook potentially lost from the downtime caused by the last outage.
It's a standard insurance calculation. In other words, we have to take all the different risks from all the different threats and figure out what the cost is to mitigate any one of those and see if it's worth it. And that's the same cost as like, do I insure my old car for being full collision or not? And it depends on the replacement value, the odds of getting hit, how often I drive it, things like that. And you have to work that all in, or you don't have a number to understand what the effective value is.
The other side of this is for example, like what we have now is that, let's say Facebook's website goes offline because a cloud provider went down, was hosting them. Let's say I don't know who does it. Let's say it's AWS, probably completely wrong. Let's say AWS goes down and it takes down Facebook. You have a huge problem then as a Facebook because that is your front door. No one can get even anything remotely to your service because of that going down. So at least having a lot of companies have mechanisms in place like Cloudflare and various other things that let them redirect traffic away to another thing. And even if it's just a page saying, sorry, we're having problems, we'll be back soon, stick with us, XYZ, right? But a lot of the time in those situations when a third-party provider, be it your ISP, be it a data provider, be it a data center, who knows, like any third party, if they go down, yes, they've got an SLA, yes, you'll get your money back or whatever it is as a company. But if you're not accessible, you're not accessible, right? So just front that one out there. Anyway, I'm banging on things back now. Go on.
By the way, like guys, I need to jump off quickly.
We're
you're
gonna head off now.
Down.
We're winding down now anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm already late to another meeting for.
Oh no! Head off. No, you just said
I just want.
We'll cover it
for questions. We're gonna answer a few more questions and
okay.
We'll finish.
Thanks a lot for being here.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, Salih.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
As I said, like next time we will talk more about.
We'll introduce some people. We'll
exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly. But overall, thank you for having me, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Cool.
So let's should we get a few more questions? Like I think we are running a little bit over. So we'll say if you have a final question on your mind, get it in the chat right now, unless you haven't called final questions, and then we'll that'll be it. So get your questions in now.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So, any words about Carbon Lang? Carbon Lang?
Carbon.
What's Carbon Lang?
Google's coming out with it. They had a press release a couple days ago.
I completely missed that. Then Carbon Language.
it's another language that they're sourcing because they think they have a need. Yeah, I guess so.
We're in C++, an experimental successor to C++. Oh, I see. Okay, no, I see this. Do you know what's funny is I look at this and it feels. I'm going to bring this up on stream here for everyone. So
sure.
Yeah, I just popped it into. I think it's Carbon Lang, and thing. But yeah, look, here you go. Here's some examples. It feels very Rust, right? It feels very much like that kind of. Fast works with C++, performance matching, matching using LLVM, low level access to bits and addresses. So, which is what you need if you're doing a C++ successor. Interpolate with your existing C++ code. Again, inheritance to templates are good, perfect. Fast scalable builds on the work of the existing C++ build system. Interesting. Model involving solid language foundations that are easy to learn, especially if you're using C++. Easy tool upgrades, safer fundamentals, incremental path towards memory safe subset. Clear goals and priorities and robust governance. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, it's like, here you go, look, JavaScript, TypeScript. Yeah, here's the example. JavaScript to TypeScript, Java to Kotlin, C++ to Carbon is what they kind of like analogy is.
If they wanted it to be similar to Rust, they should have named it Iron, which is what you have before you have Rust. Yeah,
but Carbon is the underlying thing to Iron.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. No, isn't Iron a?
I mean, here you go. Look, we design comfortable, performance-critical software, software and language evolution, code that you can easily write, read, understand, write. We try. Every language tries that. Practical safety and testing mechanisms, fast and scalable development, modern OS platforms, hardware architecture environments, interoperability and migration business. I mean, it's a stable ABI as well is obviously helpful. I mean, you can never have a complete stable ABI, but
this looks like somebody's 20% project that got out of hand.
Oh, here you go. So here, look, here's C++ code, right? So it says like this is how you include libraries. They're prototypes for libraries. I won't go into there. Defining a structure, which is like a class, let's say, and then you have a function here that takes. This is like this is namespaces, but think of it like this is generics as well. This is kind of what you'd expect. So this is kind of what the standard stuff really. And then this is what that same thing would be in Carbon. So you say package, it's import math. You have a class instead of a struct, and then you declare a function that takes a slice, which is like an array of circles. So they span. I mean, the two things you can see like how the two things, you got for in loop. I mean, like the usual stuff, print instead of cout. I mean, it's just like it does feel very like with this kind of like approach to having FN to declare a function and having the return type here, it does feel very like Swift / Rust / that kind of thing, right? Like it's very modern. Whether or not I like it or not, I mean, I'm very used to having like I'm very used to having like the return type before the function, but I get this is a function that returns an int 2 and a block starts here, right? But yeah, I mean,
looks like everybody's favorite features ended up in there somewhere. That's kind of the way committee design for languages works sometimes.
But
it has potential. It has potential, but give it time. We'll figure it out.
I think the thing that's made, I'll give you my honest opinion. The thing that's made Rust so popular is that it is a replacement for C++, like in the way that it works and everything else, but it gives you all these new language systems like optionals and safe memory and a bunch of other things. Has a whole cool trait system that you can use. I don't pretend to know enough about Rust to really talk about it, but when I look at this, I go, well, Rust has this whole cargo system of packages, saying we have pub in Dart. And that is what really makes it powerful, right? Like the community contributions, being able to access other people's code and get to that code and use it in your own projects very easily. So what Carbon needs to have for it to become anywhere competitive is the wrong term, because it has its own niche, right? Like it has its own thing. But if we want to see Carbon grow as a language, my personal opinion is that it needs to have like a pub.dev, right? Like a package manager that lets everyone access that code that everyone else is building. So I think that would be, if I was Google, that would be my priority. There you go. You got our opinion. Right. What is the best way to make the child widget state available to its parents? I have a form and I want to submit it from the parent widget. I've seen on save and saving with key needs something else. So what you can do. So first of all, you're right. You have like you do form on save, and what that does is it goes down the tree, finds all the form fields, and asks them to call the save function of each of the form fields. It's up to you to write the data to the parent when save occurs. So what you can do is you can just do context dot ancestor widget ancestor state of exact type, and put in your ancestor widget state, and then you can just go set the state in your parent from the child. And now the parent, once you've called the save function on the form key at the parent level, after it's done that function, you now know that all the state inside the parent has been updated based on all the form fields. And then you can take that and do whatever you want with it. That's one way of doing it. There's plenty of other ways of doing it. As fields change, on change, go to the parent and set the new value as the field has changed. So that when they hit the save button, it's there, it's ready. There can be various reasons for doing this. As you type, you need to validate things like that. But yeah, so you're looking at the easiest thing is to do context dot ancestor state of exact type. I have a nod from Randall. I have a GDE's approval. My life is complete.
All right.
Amit, right.
Next.
How to navigate to app page from notification payload. So when you build a material app widget, you can provide what's called a navigator key. What you want to do is you create one of these navigate keys. It's just in your state, make the whatever widget has your material app in it, make it stateful, and in the top of your stateful widget, make a global key of navigator state. That's the generic, and then you pass that key variable to your material app. And when your material app builds the navigator, it will use that key. Then what will happen is when you get your payload coming, you can register for your notification payload. When you get the on message function gets called, like when you receive it, you can then do navigator.key dot pop until I think it's push and pop until or something like that, and you can tell it to clear the stack, and you can tell it to clear all the pages that say, and then push your one page from the root if you want to. I mean, you get to choose. You can say, oh, keep popping until you're back to the main screen, or always push anchor on top. I mean, you've got a ton of things, right? I mean, hell, you could wrap your entire app in a stack and have like a little pop-down notification that animates down. Right, you're saying how to navigate to an app page from a notification payload. That's how. You can also present the notification payload, and when they tap on the notification, you can get that coming in as a deep link. And then on that deep link, you can then navigate to a page. So notification is always presented in like the notification center on iOS or the top of the screen. And you can have like your notification be a priority, so it pops down by the operating system animated. But if they tap on it, then it navigates into your app and navigates to a page. But again, it's just that. It's you're just reaching into the key and manipulating the navigation stack however you want. I would recommend Go Router. It has sort of like better support for these kind of principles than the original navigation stack. But yeah, apart from that, that's all it is. It's quite simple. Yeah.
I got nothing to add to that, except I think we're down at the end of the show. And so
we done it? Have we got there?
Yeah. I think
I
want to thank everyone who came in, brought questions in, really worked well. And I had fun. I'm sure Simon and our name, who I cannot pronounce, also had fun. This wasn't too bad, but yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah. And we're here every week that we can be, which is pretty much most weeks. typically with some guest, and then we do Q&A after that. But sometimes shows like this one, it's Q&A all the way. And we have a great time doing it. Tell your friends, share the links, share the Flutter community channel in YouTube so that people can get to these great programs and a bunch of other great programs like our whole series on Flutter Apprentice and stuff. Those are wonderful
Flutter
shows.
Apprentice
So,
on there. We've had several.
Anything
of
else,
them.
Simon, from that group?
So we have 30 Days of Flutter. We have Flutter Research Conference on there.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff, bunch of content on the community channel. And we also welcome your input on the show. So make sure you email us, and we'll get your emails. And it's slow going, so don't expect an instant reply, if a reply at all. But please email us, and then we'll take on board any suggestions that we recommended. And we said before that it might be fun to do some like live code review. So some post us a GitHub link where you can go in and review it, and give some suggestions, submit a PR, I don't know, something like that. Could be fun. Right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I know it's been a long few hours, but we're all done, and we'll see you again next week. And see you then. Ciao. Bye.
Ciao.